Welcome to Engineer Speaks. I'm Francis Fish, President of the University of Delaware Chapter of the American Society of Mechanical Engineers. Tonight, our guest speaker is Lisa Drinnan. Some background about Ms. Drinnan. Lisa graduated from Widener University in 2010 with a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering. She participated in Widener's co-op program and worked in manufacturing for the company Schramm. Sorry. Before and after her graduation. She currently works at KBR in Newark, Delaware, and has been involved in projects for DuPont for about 4 years. Outside of work, Lisa enjoys playing tennis, dancing, doing charity runs, volunteering for ASME, and helping coordinate young engineers programs. Highlights of this year include completing her first half marathon and getting engaged. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Lisa helped establish the Young Engineers of Delaware, aka YED, back in 2011, and is now Vice Chair of the ASME Delaware Section, Senior Section. Ms. Drinnan is here tonight to talk about YED, Young Engineers of Delaware, and now I would like to turn the podium over to Ms. Drinnan.
Thank you, Francis, for the introduction, and thank you all for coming. I guess first I want to start off by saying that throughout your college career and once you graduate from college and start your career, you're going to encounter a lot of rewarding experiences throughout your life that some of them you won't remember so much, but others, you'll carry them with you throughout your entire life. So with that said, I want to say seize the moment and stop to smell the roses sometimes. YED, a little bit of background about YED. I'll tell you some of the history. I helped found YED in 2011, actually by accident. Some of the people who you'll encounter throughout your career, you never know how much of an impact they'll make throughout your life either. So that's another piece of advice I'd like to share with you to remember. Actually, when I had started at KBR in Delaware, someone had forwarded me an email about a tour at the Limerick facility, the nuclear power plant in Pottstown, Pennsylvania. And it just so happened that one of the people who helped coordinate that was on the board for ASME Delaware, and he used to be one of my professors at Widener University. So, coincidence. But talking with him and talking with a person named Tom Langley, who was also the vice chair at the time of the ASME Delaware section. He was talking to me about my career and what I liked about it, just starting out. And at my job, there's a Young Professionals Network offered to help enhance young engineers' career and offer a networking system. He thought that that was perfect for the ASME Delaware section because they had been looking to increase their activities and reach out to young engineers within the area. So he reached out to me for help, and not only me, and 3 or 4 other young engineers as well who had their mechanical engineering degree. So I got to meet some really cool people. We got together and came up with an idea, and that's kind of how it took off. The purpose of the Young Engineers of Delaware is pretty much to help provide networking experience for people like us. We've done a few activities, like a tour at a local brewery, places that you wouldn't even think about engineering being involved, like a bowling alley. We all went bowling one time. We talked with somebody who who worked at the bowling alley, and they shut down the last lane for us and opened up the back and explained to us how it works. So I thought that was kind of cool. So I think things like that, it's important to take advantage of in your life. Always keep an open mind because every day you're constantly learning something. And that's something that you can carry with you throughout your career. Being involved with ASME Delaware and YED, who now there's a new president of YED, which is great. Find us on Facebook. Being involved with ASME has made a great impact throughout my life. It's helped me enhance the soft skills that I necessarily would not get as a new engineer starting out, that I can translate into my career. For example, I'm interested in not only engineering, but I'm also interested in maybe one day being a manager or going into some type of leadership role. Being involved with ASME, it was kind of like a trial and error type of thing to test out the boundaries and see what I can do, so that way when I do get to apply those skills in my daily career, everyday life, I already have some practice under my belt. So that's one way that ASME has been beneficial to me, along with a huge network of engineers. I was actually involved in a mentoring program, which I also highly recommend taking advantage of. Hearing from somebody that has experience and has been through it all. My mentor, when I was traveling to a leadership conference, found out that he actually works for the Pentagon. And I said, wow, that's really impressive. How did you get that kind of a job? And he told me it was from going to an ASME event, a networking event. He had a conversation with somebody, and it just so happened that he was on the verge of retiring, this guy who he was talking to. And he said, I'm looking for somebody to replace me in the position that I held. Are you interested? And he said, yes. I'm sure it didn't go quite as simply as I'm explaining it now, but he gave him his resume, and look where he is now. So it's important to take advantage of opportunities like that. You never know where it might lead. So I guess with that said, I'll turn it over to Francis.
Okay. So as those of you who have been coming around know, this now begins our directed question portion of the evening. All right. So we always like to, well, ease our speakers into these with a couple softball questions. So what led you to your current employment? At KBR, right?
At KBR, yes. How did I get there?
Yeah.
I guess.
How'd you get there?
So, while I was a senior at Widener, the Career Advising and Planning Services, the CAPS office, had set up a bus trip to come here, actually, to UD. I went to a career fair, brought my resume, handed it out to a bunch of the human resources representatives, and that's how I found out about KBR and learned about KBR. And a few months later, I got a phone call from the KBR asking me to come in for an interview. By that time, I was close to graduation, and I actually had already accepted a job at the place where I did my co-op at. I liked working there, so, but I did want to see what it would be like to experience working at a larger company. The place where I did my co-op was a smaller company in manufacturing. I had a great experience there. But I did want to seize the opportunity, and I took the interview, and I really did, I was impressed by KBR. So I negotiated with the mechanical engineering manager about my start date and ended up working there three months later, and now he's my manager today.
Okay.
So long story short, career fair at UD.
Okay. Earlier you had mentioned while you were talking that one of your mentors was involved with ASME. Who was that?
I am embarrassed to say I'm drawing a blank.
Piotr? Piotr? Piotr Aronovich? He teaches at White.
He was the one that I met at the Limerick tour.
Oh, okay.
He was my professor. My mentor who had worked at the Pentagon. I'm drawing a blank on his name. He wasn't my mentor for very long. It was kind of just a one-day type of thing.
Okay.
But I am involved in a mentoring program at my work, and I've had 2 mentors who have made a great impact on my career.
Okay. So, what benefits have there been involved with ASME that you found?
Other than what I've mentioned earlier,
Yes.
About the networking, it's also given me an opportunity to travel through volunteering with the ASME Delaware section. I had the opportunity to travel to New Orleans, St. Louis, and recently Houston. Not all for fun, of course, but it was for a leadership training conference, and I met some other young engineers who were in the area, and I didn't realize that there were so many of us out there.
Okay. All right. We're going to start picking up the questions now. All right. What has been your greatest struggle in your engineering career?
I'd have to say realizing that it's okay to ask for help. I think sometimes I get into a mindset of I can figure this out, or I don't know, it's kind of hard to explain, but sometimes I can be embarrassed to say that I need help with something or I don't understand something, especially if you're talking with someone who knows what they're talking about and they've had 30 years of experience under their belt and it comes easy to them. So just starting out, I've learned over time that it's okay to tell people, hey, I don't understand. Can you explain this to me? Because, and I'll tell you a story. One time I was sitting in a meeting and a bunch of people were nodding their heads, and I was under the impression that everyone in the room understood what was going on. So I didn't understand 100%. So after the meeting, I asked the person that was sitting next to me, hey, what was this person talking about? Can you explain that to me? They look at me and they go, I don't know. So the senior engineer didn't know either. So it's okay to ask for help and say you don't understand something. It'll benefit you in the long run.
All right, now the reverse side of that coin. What was your proudest moment in your career so far? Obviously, so many years ahead of it.
Yep. I'd say getting feedback from my manager and other colleagues that I'm doing a good job and making a good impact at work. I think that hearing things like that brings me joy and makes me want to work harder. So Yeah.
Okay, do you have a specific example to go along with that?
It's a good question.
I said it, start rolling.
Right. There was a project that I was recently on. It was very, very schedule driven, very, very cost driven. Some days I felt like I wasn't doing a good enough job because it was so stressful. But I was trying the best I could to do the best job I could do with the constraints given. A few months later, after I'm off the project, I get a phone call from a vendor that I had been dealing with on the project. And he said that he was coming in to stop by the office and asked me to sign a paper. And I asked, okay, what is this paper for? He had said that one of the pieces of equipment that I had been communicating with him about, and I worked with the team to help with a cost reduction for that particular piece of equipment and to make it more efficient. He told me that the cost savings was over $600,000, and our client wanted to know who the champion was to help with this cost reduction. So I think that was a glowing moment in my eyes, and it made me feel good that, hey, I did this.
Okay, so for those of you who don't know, Lisa has already taken the FE exam and is getting ready to take the PE exam in about a year, as I understand it.
I'm hoping to take the PE exam within the year.
Okay, so about on average, how long in training does someone wait before taking the PE exam?
I think that depends on the individual and what their job function is, and if their job requires them to have a PE license or not. You may or may not end up at a company that actually doesn't require you to have a PE license in order to advance in your career. But I would recommend taking the FE exam anyway, just in case you find that you do. It is difficult, more difficult to get back into the habit of studying years and years after you've graduated to try to prep for the FE exam and PE exam. It also depends if the person is willing to take on the responsibility of being a professional engineer. Personally, I work at a company that deals with the design, procurement, and construction services for clients all over the world. And that deal with that comes with handling a lot of documentation. So legally, our company is required to have professional engineers to review and stamp those documents. Once you stamp the document, you become responsible for those documents. In case anything down the road happens, it comes back to you. So for me personally, in order to reach my own career goals within the company, I would need to get my PE license.
Okay.
So whether or not you think you need it for your job will dictate when a person decides to get it or if they don't get it.
Okay. All right. All right. So you've obviously recently joined the workforce. So is it difficult to earn a position in the field you have no prior work experience with? Mostly pertaining to being right out the door.
It can be difficult, but with each individual, I think there will be its own set of challenges presented. There are things that you can do to make it easier to transition. For example, ask for help. Ask your manager or your leader in your project to be clear of the expectations that they have of you for the project. Because if you're not clear, not only are you making it harder on yourself, but it could also impact your team. So that's another thing to keep in mind, that when you get into the workforce, it's not just about you, it's also about your team and your society.
Okay. So, some of our prior speakers have actually been asked this exact question, and their answers have actually been polar opposites. Once you have a job, how are you judged? So one of our speakers actually said, oh, well, I was the low guy on the totem pole and they made me know it. And one of our other speakers goes, I felt very welcome and accepted. So,
Yeah, I
Your
think
take.
that varies from company to company. I truly believe that with the company that I work for now at KBR, I felt very welcomed. In fact, I still remember my first day. The people who I met that day, very nice. The one person who I really look up to at my job took me to a meeting, and everyone started talking with all of these acronyms that I didn't understand, and I had no idea what was going on. And I remember sitting there, and I had a notebook, and I was taking notes, and I put down my pen, and the woman sitting next to me saw that I was writing notes and had a bunch of question marks all over my page, picked up my pen and started writing in answers. So I felt very welcomed. I felt like they were very supportive that I was a new engineer and very happy to share their experiences with me. I actually found that some of the more experienced engineers who would share their experience with me actually leaned on me for technical stuff on the computer. For example, so I don't know how to work Excel. Can you show me this in Word and things like that? So it worked both ways.
all right. One of the things that both of our previous speakers have been stressing is communication and the ability to communicate not only with other engineers, but those that will be hired, new business professionals. So the question posed is, do you have any communication advice?
Yes, speak to be heard and understood. I know easier said than done. Speak with confidence. If you talk with confidence, I guess people, the way you're perceived, you look like you know what you're talking about when you're more confident. I don't know how else to put it, but be honest. There are people that you might encounter who might frustrate you. Maybe things might not go your way. It's not a good thing to yell at them or call them names. But it is a good idea to tell them how you feel, confront them, tell them how their actions are affecting your work negatively maybe, and something that can be done to improve that or alleviate the situation. It's not good if you have a problem with someone or something to talk behind their backs, because that just doesn't solve anything. So it is important to communicate and be careful, be aware of what you're saying to people, not only verbally but also through email. Someone told me a story once, I know I have lots of stories, sorry, that they were joking around with a friend, not at the company that I'm at or that I used to work for, but somebody told me a story. they said something very inappropriate about one of the managers in an email, and they hit send and accidentally sent it to the whole entire company. Fail. So be careful what you say.
Okay. So you were here tonight to talk about YED, Young Engineers of Delaware. How soon can one of the young engineers here at the university get involved with those activities?
So the Young Engineers of Delaware is meant for young professionals with 10 years of experience or less, for engineers who have their degree, who have graduated. But sometimes YED does collaborate with the student section on certain events. So really you can get involved at any time, depending on what type of event it is. Obviously, if we're going to a brewery, you have to be 21 years or older. But yeah, pretty much if you're a young engineer or a student, you can get involved. There's an email address, I think it's yedelaware@gmail.com, and you can also request to join the Facebook group. It's Young Engineers of Delaware on Facebook, and somebody on the board will accept you. So you can check out the events that they have. Our next event, I think, was going to be pumpkin chunking, but unfortunately that got canceled.
Yeah.
There was an article in USA Today, so better luck next year.
Yeah. I mean, you can always go up with the university team to cheer us on.
That's very true.
Yeah.
It's a great idea.
Yeah. All right. Moving right along. Only have a few more questions.
No
All right.
problem.
What got you into engineering?
I don't know, actually, throughout my life, if my parents got a new table or vacuum cleaner or something, my dad has a very short temper, so is not as mechanically inclined. And my mom would just give me the set of instructions and say, here, put this together. So I guess I like creating things and putting things together. And actually, I didn't even know what engineering was until I was in high school. When I went to Widener's Engineering Girls Mini Camp, where they had an all-day event. We did different labs, and some volunteers from Boeing and other companies came in and led the labs. And that's when I figured out I like math, maybe I'll like engineering.
All right. Well, what would you have changed about your college experience?
I don't think I would have changed anything.
Okay.
Other than maybe starting as engineering to begin with. I actually didn't start as an engineering major. I got accepted into Drexel's 5-year co-op program, so I had the opportunity to go there for engineering. At Widener, I wasn't too familiar with their engineering program at the time. I didn't know they had a co-op program like Drexel did. And I was also interested in business or some type of accounting or finance. Basically, I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I entered Widener as undecided, but they told me, since you have an interest in engineering, you can take this Engineering 101 lab course to see if you're interested, and you can take a business course and talk with some of the professors and help you figure it out. So I guess going back, I maybe would have started as engineering so I could minor in something. Not starting as engineering kind of made it harder throughout college with my course load because I had to play catch up when I did decide that I wanted to do engineering. So I guess that's one thing that I would have changed.
Okay. And that concludes the directed questioning portion of the evening. We now would open it up to the floor for audience questions. Come on, guys. I'm sure there's something you're dying to ask her.
Don't be shy. You can ask me anything.
Like you said that when you were graduating, you accepted a job for when you had your co-op, and then you also got a fellow job. Did you like end up just rejecting the other, like saying no to the co-op program, like to that job? And was that like an awkward kind of conversation? Like how did you deal with that situation in school?
That's a good question. So when I was in my interview with my now manager, I was very honest with him and told him I already accepted this other job. Would it be an issue if, say, I didn't start for another 3 months because I already promised to work there for 3 months? The place where I had done my co-op with, it was kind of like a contract deal.
Okay.
Like I wasn't receiving benefits yet. There was that 3-month trial period, and then I would start to receive benefits if I decided to stay with them. So I guess on my first day, I had told them I had this other opportunity that I might take after the 3-month period is up.
Okay.
So I can't remember if I told them right away or not, because I think I was still deciding on whether or not I wanted to take the job, my current job.
So I'm thinking about doing a postgraduate degree. What do you, like, as a young engineer, do you see a lot of other people doing that, or is that not something that's really valued as much as it would be in other fields?
I think there is value in doing a postgraduate degree, but it also depends on what you're looking to do. For example, if you want to get into research and development, R&D with DuPont or some other company, having that postgraduate degree and additional knowledge, specific knowledge, will definitely benefit you. If you're looking to go more on the management side, it may or may not benefit you in the long run. So I would say think about where you want to take your career. If you want to stick with the technical side or lean more towards the business side. I think having your PE license or any kind of master's degree is definitely helpful.
Well, I'm doing civil, so the P's pretty much gotta happen.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes, definitely.
PA.
Yes. And I'm not sure if this is a myth or not. I think I heard someone say that at some point they might make it a requirement to have a postgraduate degree in order to take the PE license.
I've heard that floated around, that it will depend upon NSBE, but I don't think it's going to happen very soon.
I hope not, because I don't have a master's degree right now. And I would like to get the PE.
No, so I wouldn't worry about that.
Okay. So don't worry about what I just said.
Any
Any
other
other
questions?
questions?
You mentioned that you did a co-op. What did that teach you about engineering, and would you, well, first of all, would you recommend it to other students? And how did that impact your future job besides the fact that you got a job with them?
That's a good question. So I would recommend it. Once you get into the workforce, people are looking for engineers with experience, whether that be with your co-op program or an internship or somewhere else. So that experience will definitely benefit you. Personally, when I was working in manufacturing, actually walking around and seeing the equipment and the machinery definitely made me take on a whole different perspective. There was a guy there that had been there for 30 years, and he actually took me to each of the sections on the shop floor and said, this is a flange, this is a T, this is an O-ring, and things like that. So I learned things that you wouldn't necessarily learn in a classroom setting. At some places you might. That definitely benefited me in the long run, because looking at drawings and documentations at my job now, it makes it easier for me to understand and interpret them rather than trying to think of this fictitious object that I have no idea what it looks like. There was one person on the shop floor who took out a drawing that an engineer had done. And he said, take a look at this drawing. You're studying to be an engineer, right? So I said, yes, I'm studying right now. I'm still in school, I'm still learning. He said, okay, good. Now tell me what's wrong with this drawing. I have no idea what's wrong with it. So he made me take a look at the drawing and then take a look at the truck. Now this company makes drill rigs. He made me take a look at the drill rig that they had assembled. And he said, okay, now if you look at the drawing and look at this control box, he opened the control box door and it didn't open all the way. The bolts were too big. So they had to end up doing rework to replace that, to make it function correctly. So he told me to remember something that may look good on paper may not always look good or be practical in real life. That's something that I thought was really good advice. So yes, do the co-op program, get that experience. Hands-on field experience, I think, is one of the greatest experiences that will help you advance your career.
Okay. Were you able to do the co-op in the 4 years, or did it add time?
Yep, I did it in 4 years.
So
Took some summer classes
Right.
and adjusted my schedule.
you think they could get a similar kind of experience with some internships?
Yes, I think so. Internships over the summer.
Right.
All right, are there any other questions?
Hey, were you a student member of ASME? when
Yes,
you were
I
at
was.
Wyman?
I didn't take advantage of all of the activities
Right.
that I probably should have or could have. I guess I didn't know the advantages that there were and taking advantage of those.
All right,
Anything else?
are there any other questions from the audience?
Is there anything that I said that was unclear or you didn't understand? Good?
Yeah. We're going to end a little early tonight. It's sort of a side effect of it being homecoming weekend here at the University of Delaware. But that being said, we'd like to thank Lisa for coming out. And to show our appreciation for her coming, we have a custom-made ASME pencil box. Inside we have a Rotring 800 pencil.
Ooh,
It's hers.
thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thanks very much, Francis. Thanks for listening.
All right, let's give her one last round of applause.